Hello and welcome to Frax Models. This is my latest model I've been working on. It's been a while since I've done a TARDIS model video for YouTube. Usually I do classic Doctor Who police boxes and Met boxes, and I've done a Peter Cushing's box as well. But about 5 years ago I just started to design the CAD files for this as I wanted to get into making consoles. I'm not sure why I started with the Pertwee one. I think it was because there were some decent plans that had just been made available by Tony Farrell, and I used Tony's plans for this. So I started designing this and printing it in about 2021, I think it was. But I never actually finished one because I got sidelined and I decided to go back and do a Prohaski first Doctor console, which I did and I completed about 3 or 4 years ago. And I think the reason I put this one on hold for so long was the details on the panels, the little decals, the arrows, the lines. It's just such a tricky console. It was tricky to get it the way I wanted it to be. When I did the Hartnell console, I did all the panels in resin. So the whole console is made of, the main structure of each console I've made so far is PLA. So that's the base, the fins on the base, the tabletop as I call it. But the panels, because you want some smooth detail, I did those in resin for the Hartnell one. And when I came to make the Pertwee one, it came out really nice, the lines are really good, but for some reason, ever since I did the first Hartnell console, all my resin panels started to warp, and they just didn't fit right, and they'd curl up at the edges, and it was really frustrating, and to a point where I just decided to put the whole project on hold. And then I think I'd made various attempts on my old PLA printer to try and print this in the panels in PLA, because PLA is so stable. Once you've printed it, it doesn't warp as easily. It's like proper plastic. And resin is so messy, so making these panels in resin, it's just such a mess. If I can avoid printing in resin, I do. It's such a shame because resin's amazing detail, and there are lots of resin pieces on this, as you'll see in a moment. But the main panels, I wanted the structural integrity of PLA. So when I got my new printer earlier this year, it was such an amazing leap in quality compared to my old Anycubic printer. They're so much more quieter now, they run smoothly, the detail is almost resin quality. So all the panels, I went back, and I think what started this project again was that I found some of this mint green PLA, and my original plan was just to do some TARDIS walls in this colour. But when I tested printed it on one of these panels, and I was amazed with the detail. I was like, oh, this is like resin quality almost. Well, actually, yeah, I'm just as happy as with the resin panels I tested. But you don't get the mess, you don't get the warping. And yeah, I was just so pleased with it. I thought, right, I'm going to have another crack at this. I'm going to have another go at this Pertwee console, because it's probably one of my favourite consoles. I love the Pertwee era. It's such a rare treat to see the console in the Pertwee era, because his Doctor, as we all know, was always earthbound, mostly earthbound. So when you see the console room, it was always a bit of a nice moment. And I particularly liked seeing the similar details that were on the Hartnell console, but just a slight variation. And obviously it was a new console back in '71. So after season 7, which was the last season to feature the original Prohaski console, they made a totally new console, and it was designed by Kenneth Sharp. And it was slightly bigger, slightly different design, so the fins on the bottom were different, but it retained a lot of the control basics of the Prohaski consoles. There are a lot of similarities with the lever housing and these levers, these little doodads, and the lights, the little grills. There's so many similarities to the original, but sort of updated. But as I was saying earlier, it does come with its difficulties compared to the earlier console with all these lines. Now what I decided to do, I would never be able to make these as decals. I think I tried once to have these lines as, I print them off on sort of clear, transparent, sticky back stuff, transfers basically, but it just didn't look right. So the only way I had to do it was to add the lines into the CAD design as a slightly raised lines, and then obviously it prints out, and you can, what I do is go over them with a paint pen. So I've got various different colours of paint pens. And the other thing with this console as well is little, like the lettering on some parts. So those I did as stickers. They are stickers that I found, I think it's from Tony Farrell's plans actually. I sort of scaled down or scaled up and then cut them out on sticky back paper and stick them on. So that's the basics of it. I did with this project, so in a moment I'm going to add, because this is just part of a diorama I've created, so we'll go through the diorama in a moment, but sticking to the console for a minute, I originally planned for this build to do all the variations in the panels over the years, because there was quite a few variations. This one is based on season 10, so which I thought was quite a nice season to focus on, with 3 Doctors, some important stories in there that showcase the console. So you have, particular to this season, the extreme emergency lever housing, which does open up, and then you have the little lever inside. You can see that with the light. It's basically a red pin I use as a lever. And some of the details that were on this console from the beginning was the dematerialization circuit holding. So this pops up, and then there's actually a little dematerialization circuit inside there. I can showcase that later when I've got some. It's actually there's a magnet that holds the little dematerialization circuit into the housing, and we need a pair of tweezers to get that out. So when I come back later, I shall get a pair of tweezers. The other tricky part of this console was the central column. I think this was probably the most complicated one, although the Prohaski one was quite complex. But with the Prohaski console time rotor, I managed to print all the pieces in resin, and it looked really good. With this one, the green tubes I just could not get to print well in resin. They just didn't look right. So what I actually found with this was some pens from Tesco, which are exactly the right colour, exactly the right size, and I was able to cut them down and use those for the green tubes. And then the rest is a mixture of PLA printed pieces for the main structure, which includes the little red transparent triangular piece in the middle, and then these fiddly resin pieces, which were a nightmare to get right. That I actually printed those pieces in resin, those little flags I call them, and then they are held on by little holes at the back to a clear acrylic rod, which is very, I think it's 1mm clear acrylic rod. So I was really pleased with how that turned out in the end, because it's one of the details that I really struggled to get to the point where I was happy with it. And then the next bit was the lighting, which took me a while to get it to look like those old tube lights that the original had. And when we put the diorama together in the next part, I will show off the lights on it as well. But for this bit, I just wanted to show the console itself with all the details. I think this metal panel was actually, I don't think it was the same one as in season 7, but it was a very similar tweak that they made for the season 7 look. At some point I would like to make the season 7 console actually, because I really like that one. Oh yeah, I do have one spare panel to show off of this from season 8. So when this version of the Sharp console first appeared, it had the panel looked like that. So they added later on one of those extra grill speaker things, and some details were removed and changed. So as I say, the original intention with this was to do all the panel variations. So I've got all the CAD designs for all the different panels for the different seasons. But I sort of ran out of steam. I got console fatigued. I just sort of wanted to concentrate on one season really for it. Because there are some nice variations that I'll probably make some, I probably will do those panels at some point to show off and make another one of these. But I think it's season 11, Death to the Daleks. This metal panel was bigger and there was some extra lights and things on it. So I've designed that and actually printed that in resin, that panel. So I will make that variant at some point. And I think there was some other, so oh yes, in Time Monster, this panel was different. So the Extreme Emergency box was on this panel in Time Monster. The other thing to show is under this panel, I did make the little, it's actually magnetised to the back of here, the little speaker that was in Time Monster. And then you just take it off the magnet off the back and then magnetise it. And then you've got the Time Monster look. So yeah, the panels are just held in by these little spines, as I call them. These are also printed in PLA in the same plastic, mint green. Okay, on to the next part.